Yeah, mahalo for the invitation. I'm very happy to be here today. Happy Cannabis Day. And I see a lot of familiar faces, so good seeing everyone. Our story is very similar to Shanna and Hannah's story. My daughter has an intractable form of epilepsy, and we've been battling since 2000 and I think 2009. And cannabis came into our life at around 2013. So I'm going to quickly go through some slides that shows a little bit of our story. Okay, so this kind of just talks about the learning curve that we had to go through as parents and our 8-year journey that I'm going to share with you very quickly. And then if you have questions, please let me know after today. But this is just a case study of our daughter, whose name is MAILE Jen Hope KANESHIRO. And I mean, the Keiki are just as determined as ever to fight and do whatever it takes to change laws. And we're just happy to present about our daughter, who's just the most determined and feistiest wahine on the planet, I think. So she has a form of epilepsy, and she's one of 26 Americans who have epilepsy, and she has an intractable form called Dravet syndrome. She was born healthy. She was diagnosed with Dravet syndrome at the age of 6 months. She was diagnosed with autism a little bit later in 2016. She has a rare form, as I mentioned, called Dravet syndrome, and it's Dravet syndrome month. So I thought it was important to point that out. And she has a SCN1A mutation, which it becomes a lifetime condition for her. And she's highly resistant to many anti-epilepsy medications out there. So the beginning of her life, it was just filled with hospital visits. She had her first shot at about 4 months. And from there, she had a febrile seizure. And then from there, it was just nonstop seizures over the years. She's had thousands of seizures to date, many different types of seizures. She's been in the ICU many times. She's no stranger to that, many times in the hospital, numerous calls to ambulances and routine blood draws. And, you know, she's just familiar with being in the hospital situation for most of the early part of her life. We were in the cancer center because a lot of the drugs that she was taking was affecting her platelets. And we've tried all the traditional epilepsy strategies that were out there. We've tried FDA and non-FDA approved drugs. We've tried combinations. We tried drugs before they were age appropriate. We've also went into hyperactivity medications, which affected her heart. And so we've done everything imaginable except for shock therapy to try to get these seizures to stop. We've tried the ketogenic diet 2 times, and we traveled to Chicago and Miami to see if we could bring some control to her life. By the age of 4, she's been on numerous, I would say about 24 medications. She's been on a diet twice, which limited her ability to eat. So she had a tube installed in her stomach and just a number of different emergency drugs throughout the years. She has tremendous behavior issues that we're addressing now with applied behavior analysis versus medication. And that's working very well for her. So this was, as they tell you to tally all the seizures when you stay in a hospital, you can see that our life was basically out of control. I turned to the New England Journal of Medicine, and I found that after the 3rd line of anti-epilepsy drugs, your response time goes down significantly. So at that point, we knew the epilepsy meds weren't going to help her very much more unless we found a new solution for her. So this was our life. I mean, before the age of 5, her life was pretty much hospital bound, and we were basically just losing her very quickly. So this was my son. He used to spend all his time doing his homework in the hospital, and we just decided, like, we need to do something different. And so I'm going to go quickly through this. You just cut me off at any point. We did see online on television these families that have children who have Dravet syndrome, Jada and David and Charlotte Figi, and we watched how their parents were administering CBD and other cannabinoids to improve their seizure management. And at that point, I realized that Hawaii had a law back in 2000 that if you had a condition of epilepsy, you were qualified to utilize medical marijuana in the state of Hawaii. So the challenge was finding a physician or a doctor that would approve us and allow us to obtain this card. We studied everything. We presented a number of different facts to the doctors. And finally, a doctor had signed off on our card, and we were able to obtain medical marijuana in Hawaii. This is just to show you that we've studied a number of different research scientific journals. And what we were looking for is, we even studied Dr. Goldstein's articles, but we were looking for a dose that would work for our daughter. And we found that the University of Colorado had found a sweet spot, and we tried to use this as our way to figure out how to best administer medical marijuana so that we could get the best control for her. That article just says that there was power to THC. So we decided we were going to grow her cure. We obtained her card in 2013 with the help of a very willing physician who was bold enough to give a 4-year-old child a medical marijuana card in the state of Hawaii. And then we were faced with, how do we get our plants? How are we going to process this plant into a form of medicine? And then I had a background in agriculture, so I decided that we were going to do it ourselves. So I'm just going to show you pictures at this point. We traveled to Colorado. We were invited to the Charlotte's Web clinical trials, which ended abruptly. So then we came home and we had to figure out how to do it ourselves. This was our first plant that someone gave to us. It was called Wizard. We changed her name to Harry Potter, and we just started from here. We just had one plant, which we thought was high in THC, but we went from there. We found different ways to obtain plants in Hawaii. We started to get seeds and cuttings from friends. And then one day a man called me out of the blue and he gave me Harlequin, which we believe had CBD. But at that time, we had no way of telling if the plant had CBD or not. This was before laboratories were established. So we grew the plants in our backyard and in our attic and in our bedrooms, just to figure out how to get this plant into our daughter. And then we were eating leaves as well. We didn't know that the medicine was actually largely in the flowers. So a lot of education took place. These are all photos from our house. We were processing THCA as well as THC and CBD. We just weren't exactly sure what we were getting until we found a way to test. So we used our family crock pot. We were making oils for our daughter. And we're just trying to figure out the best way to suppress some of these seizures that were coming. We purchased the butter machine, and then we had our share of growing issues as well. But in time, we were able to harvest and process successfully. And then it became down to dosing. How did we know that we were giving her the right dose? So back then, this is probably like 8 years ago, there was these color spectrum devices where you could tell if a flower had THC or CBD. And so this is what we started with, mason jars and these little color spectrum type of gadgets. And so then I knew we were starting to get some CBD in our oils. I attended Amsterdam University. We bought these special machines that were available online. Our family went to Colorado to learn as much as we could from patients. And we bought these little THC shakers where you put dry ice in the machine. It's like a paint bucket and it'll basically shake all the trichomes off. We were giving our daughter THCA. But in time, I met an auntie by the name of Auntie Jody, and she had a thin layer chromatography machine. And that's when everything changed for us, when we realized that what the power of that oil actually was. So we were able to get CBD and THC in our oils by growing strains like ACDC and Harlequin. And that's when she started to truly progress, is when we had this information behind this. So this is what our plates look like at home. We were starting to compare our oils versus commercial products, and we were getting pretty close. So we were really happy. Some of the Associated Press came over to see what we were doing. And, you know, we were even putting things like into chocolate and little popsicles here, like lollipops, just because we were working with seniors that had trouble eating and had a number of different medical issues as well. So we've all learned together. A lot of cannabis patients have come over and helped us make creams and different types of edibles as well. So this is my friend Terry, and then we started making some oils and submitting it to Steep Hill so we could get a better idea of what we were doing. And really, this is what a normal EEG looks like. 2012, we went to Miami. This is what my daughter's EEG looks like. And then 2015, it's not ideal, but it's getting a little bit better in time. So we know, like scientifically, there is some things happening. We are able to reduce the number of seizures every day. We're down to 1 seizure medication. She no longer has 5 types of seizures. She has 1 dominant type. She's making strides in terms of cognitive and behavior issues, and, you know, just a better life than what she had before. If you can see her face, she's very happy, and we're not living out of that hospital all the time. So we're very thankful we had an opportunity to go and travel to Japan, California. She's had beignets in New Orleans. We walked the Torii Gates at Hiroshima when she turned 10. And then this is her today at the age of 12. So 8 years later, since we got our card, her prognosis was very poor at the age of 4 years old. She wasn't forecasted to live past 5, but this is her today. And we owe it all to the families and the patients out there who have helped us along the way. We met a lot of the patients on Instagram, and through there, we've met them through some of the committees and other advocacy work that we have done throughout the years. But really, it's our responsibility to now pay it forward and do our best to advocate for medical cannabis where and when we can. And so these are just some pictures that we've collected, that some of the work that we've done. And if there's a student that wants to learn about it, we'll invite them into our homes and we'll teach them everything that we're doing. Nothing's a secret, but we really have a community behind us that supports us, and we want to do our best. And so we've been doing this for many years. My son is exhausted, so I try to keep him out of it, but we're trying to do the best that we can to change her trajectory, because her prognosis was poor and her outcome at that time was not positive. So we made some changes along the way so that the direction that we're going in is different now, and her quality of life is much better today than it was when she was 4. So I know I had like 10 minutes, I just jammed through that, but you know, I really want to thank all of you, because in some way everyone has supported us, and we're very proud of the improvements that she's made, and her life is much different today because of all of you and all your help. So thank you very much.
Aloha.